All right, I have not gone live. It's been over a month, a very, very long time. But we have a call coming up tomorrow. I wanted to chat over a couple of things ahead of tomorrow's call. And we're going to be talking about this strategy where, on a daily basis, almost I'm pretty regularly showing how I'm generating an extra $1,000 or so a month. Today was ended up being about 1,500. So once I shared it, it was at about 1,200, and then it was at about 1,500. So we're going over how in acquisition holdcos we add additional income with a specific type of strategic trading that generates income. So I want to talk about why first, and then talk a little bit about the how and set up everybody who's going to be on that Patreon call tomorrow so that we can hit the ground running with that training. So first of all, one of the things that I think is interesting is when you're looking at real estate, one of the things that's great about it is the tax advantages. And so I feel like real estate is at one end of the spectrum because it has some benefits. You can get capital very easily, and you can get all of the tax benefits, depreciation, everything that comes along with it. The biggest downside is the lack of cash flow. If you've ever done deals, you know that if you're flipping properties, you're kind of eating up cash flow, spending a bunch of money. There's no income coming in. You're kind of, it's almost like this bet that you are going to be able to sell it. And so every day, I've done it. I bought a business called Homevestors. We flipped over the course of 20 years. Over the course of 2 years, we flipped over 100 properties. And, basically we did about 60 a year. And so, I know you've got kind of all of these holding costs that come into play. If you borrow money, you've got those costs, you're paying contractors, you're paying. And so all this money's coming out. If on the other end, you're playing the cash flow game, you're buying rental properties, the margin is really, really thin. So you've got your costs that are the mortgage, you've got insurance, you've got taxes, and then you've got if you get that headache of a tenant, you've got those issues and repairs that can eat up the money. So you've got the benefit of the taxes and appreciation and all that, but the cash flow is being consistent and being at a really great margin, like we like with businesses, is the really tough thing. But over time, you're kind of building this wealth. On the other end of the spectrum, you have businesses, and I love buying and selling business. So we'll talk about that in a sec. And so I feel like that's kind of in the middle of these two. But the other thing I love is stock market strategy. So as a lot of you know, my very first business that I acquired was called Cool Wall Street. It was a stock market simulator. And now that's been 24 years ago, which is crazy to think about because it seems like yesterday. But that was kind of my original jump into business, was actually through the stock market, and my interest in buying that business was because of my love for the stock market. So, but the downside, it's literally at the other end of the spectrum. So it has all of these downsides that I've always grappled with, kind of early on. It was like, all right, there are no tax benefits. There is no depreciation. You're paying just straight off the back of the short-term capital gains, which, a lot of the strategies and a lot of the strategies we're going to be talking about tomorrow are like max capital gains tax. It's just coming up. There's no way around it. And if you're only using that strategy, which we're going to talk about the ways that you can add other strategies to it, because that becomes an issue. If you're generating, so with the trades that I show in the Patreon, it generates an income, which is short-term income, but it's about $1,000, a little more than $1,000 a month. I mean, $1,000 a day. So with that income, I've got to pay tax on that, and I don't have all of the benefits tax-wise that come with real estate. And so this is why doing this as a actually holdco It's also something we'll do in the private equity funds. But when you create a acquisition holdco, now you're kind of getting some of the benefits that we talk about over here, because every deal that we do, you're getting these depreciations. Even when you buy a business and you have all of the write-offs that are in that business. And so now you can have the trading strategies come and be a part of one of your special purpose vehicles that are under that acquisition holdco, so that you get the tax benefits. And I think that is really, really important. I think there are a lot of traders that are out there that are giving up half of their winnings. You know what I mean? Like, if you do really, really well and you've got to pay the government half of that, and then the next year you don't do well, or you don't do as well, it's like, man, half of that money could have been money that you could really use in that year that you don't do as well. And so this strategy is what allows you to do that. Now, what we're going to be talking about tomorrow is three kind of levels and several different strategies within those, but that are all around generating income from the market. Our goal is not trading and hoping that a stock does anything. Like, I'm never really hoping that a stock does anything. And this is why I call it strategic trading, because I'm basically setting up a trade so that no matter what happens, I'm happy with the result. Now, sometimes I'm more happy, other times I'm less happy, but you've got each of these strategies where you're basically getting money on the front end, and then whatever happens after that, we want you to be happy with. So what are these kind of high level strategies? Well, the overarching thing is that it's all about selling instead of creating a trade and buying options or buying futures or buying stock even. It's all about selling. And what I say, and one of the reasons that I really became focused on a strategy is because Warren Buffett uses it. It's one of the ways that he's made billions of dollars. And I went and visited the Omaha convention they do once a year for Berkshire Hathaway. And one of the really interesting things, when you looked at the numbers, it's like, wait a minute. So he was selling these options and made an extra $1 billion for his holding company. And the really cool thing is you can literally do the exact same thing that he does. It's one of the more frustrating things around Warren Buffett's kind of the legend of who he is that most of the people don't talk about what he really does. It's like this imaginary thing of like, oh, he just you got to buy and hold like Warren Buffett. It's like, no, he's doing a lot of additional things. It's not just sit back and buy and holding. And one of those is he's literally selling options against the stocks he's on. So that is an example of covered calls. So we're going to talk about that strategy tomorrow, and how to pick the right stock, how to use margin, how to make sure that you're picking the right option to sell, so you're maximizing income and getting, like I said, the result that you want. We're going to talk about selling puts. Selling puts is, if you're in the Patreon, I mean, it's just been an amazing year for selling puts. This has been my most profitable year ever for that particular strategy, but that has been because it is a bull market and now things are shifting. So we want to change some of those things. But, I literally share the exact trades with, not just like, because I think that's a bad thing if somebody's just like telling you, here's a trade I made, because I don't necessarily want you copying it. So with each one and each setup, because sometimes it's not just a simple trade. So today I did a vertical put spread, credit spread. And so with that, it can seem overwhelming, or that sounds complicated. And so instead of just saying, oh, I did that on this stock and kind of that's it, it's really breaking down like, here is the exact execution, here's how I set that trade up, here's when it was fulfilled. But then most importantly is, here is the strategy behind it, and here's what I'm thinking, here's the why as to why I set this trade up this way. So you've got the cover calls, you've got selling puts, you've got what I just mentioned, which is vertical credit spreads. And so you could have a vertical put spread, you have a vertical call spread. And we're going to go through all of these, when to do them, how to set them up. So I'm very excited. It's been fun talking to a few of you in the Patreon messaging that are starting to play with this. And the thing that I love is that you can start with a very small account. Now, for combining this into what we talk about with deal making, I love the fact that you can literally go out, because with this, you can't get access. The other benefit that I talked about with real estate is that you can get access to funding. So where is the money going to come from? So one of the things that I love is you can literally buy a business, and there's so many ways to structure these. You can buy a business that literally has working capital. So we're doing a deal right now in Georgia where we're helping some buyers buy a business. The company actually does have a tremendous amount of working capital, and we're doing an SBA deal that is going to keep that working capital in the business. In other cases, you're buying a business, and it could be a small deal where you get financed to buy that business, and you're using the income, and it's funding your trading. And I think this is just such a smarter way. Like, I don't really want you doing very aggressive strategies. And so obviously you should be investing, but with the more aggressive strategies, I don't want you to use money that you worked for. I want you to use passive income. So if you can buy a business and have that generate the income, and then have that income go into account. So my goal, and my goal for clients is always, I don't want you necessarily living, really should never be living off of money that you worked for. If it's a job, you should not be living off of that money. And that was one of the things that Mike Aiken, my mentor, was really on me about. It's like, dude, if you have to go out and you have to work for this money, that's not like money to be spent. That's money to be invested. And then the only money you should ever spend is money that comes from your investments. And so if you're working in a business and that business is kind of tied to your time, then that money should go somewhere else. And so, in this case, like, you could literally take that money, put it into the strategies, and then that income is the money that you should be spending. And that little shift, and even if you're not in a position to do that today, to make that a goal, I think is really, really important. Your goal should be to live off of your investment income. So I want to give you that high level overview. Thank y'all for popping in here really quickly. If you're on the call tomorrow, you'll get the link and everything. She'll send out an email if you registered. If you're not, be sure to join the Patreon, and we'll be on tomorrow night. We had Ma Binu jump in. Says, how's it going, Ace? That's my email. All right. And Chap says, exactly. You got to pigeonhole the profit. That's what you want to do. You don't want to, just at the end of the day, I make a bunch of money just to give to our government. Our government is freaking crazy. You should do a lot of work to figure out how not to send money to the government. So we're going to talk about those strategies tomorrow. Everybody have a good night. Looking forward to it.